Oh, baby doll, when bells ring out the summer breeze. Oh, baby doll, will it end for you and me? We'll sing old alma mater and think of things that used to be.
All right, well, good afternoon. This is Tony Navarro here. And Tony, we're having a little reunion from our grammar school and Belvedere, Tiburon area. And I was wondering if you'd talk to us a little bit and tell us, what's been going on in your life.
All kinds of great stuff. But probably the thing that I cut.
My extroverted stories would be everyone, it was the style then to wear your shirts with your shirt tails out.
Specifically, Spencer, if you were caught with your shirt out more than 3 times, he would take your shirt away.
Jumping off the pier in Tiburon for the tourists at Sam's to get money. They would throw dollars into the water. We would jump off, swim to get the money, and bring it on. And one day, I suspect there are quite rich people in a nice, fancy, huge motorboat, invited us all over for hamburgers after we had been swimming for the dollars and the money. So those are my other memories.
And one of the things I remember specifically is actually walking to Del Mar School and feeding Blackie on my way every day, giving him a little apple or a carrot. And it was it was a wonderful feeling to know this horse was here every day when I was growing up.
The trestle is gone, but you can still kind of see it in your mind's eye. That was a very scary thing to cross because you had to put your ear down to the rail to make sure the train wasn't coming. And we had to watch out for the hobos. I don't know, seems like a long time ago.
I remember, as a matter of fact, the rule was after school every day, you could play for as long as you wanted until the 4:30 whistle went. And when the 4:30 whistle went, you had to head for home. That means you'd be home by 5 or 5:30. And you had to take off your goddamn clothes before you entered the house.
And of course, you start reminiscing about all of the wonderful people and things from back then. Mr. Stevens' PE class and getting our head, probably with Mark, maybe Woody and somebody else getting our faces smashed in the mud because we were throwing mud instead of playing soccer.
And jump back on our bikes, stop at Mr. Musso's and get a cookie and say hi and head on, and kind of cruise past the tourists and zigzag the wrong way on the one-way streets, and kind of felt like we owned the place somehow.
Well, okay, one of my memories is grass sliding down Tiburon Hill up behind Reed School and going there with my brothers. Mainly we'd take cardboard boxes and tear them apart and just fly down the hill. And I have a lot of adventures with Betty Ferguson.
My friend and I, Betsy Gast, were given the job of helping the librarian move the library to where the post office is now. And Mrs. McKegney, the librarian, was the most intelligent, wonderful person in the world, and she loved turning people on to books. But she couldn't drive and she couldn't pack boxes. So Betsy and I did all of the packing of the boxes, and I remember we moved the entire library, just the 3 of us. And I do remember that was the first time I ever actually drove a car. I'd driven them before in practice, but I had to take the last trip because Mrs. McKegney almost killed about 10 people in the trip before. She was such a horrible driver. But we moved that entire library, and I swear Betsy and I were, how old were we, 13?
We'd save these big refrigerator boxes or something and go head on up to a certain spot and slide down. And it would kind of be this big congregation of kids. And then at one point there were some wonderful trails that would go up along the ridge lines. And I can remember hiking up there towards where there was an old dump. And there was a group of beatniks living around the dump, and they were doing sculptures and welding with metal out of the scrap metal. And they were living under this huge old oak tree. And, they had like a living room and a kitchen, and we would go up and visit them all the time. I had a sculpture that one of them had given me for a long time, and that was very eye-opening. It was like, oh, okay, different way to live,
The thing I think of most, besides my father, is the fact that when I think of people I trust, and this is an odd thing,
I think of the people that I went to 7th and 8th grade. I don't know why, but for the most part, I think I would just trust them intuitively.
I remember so well back when the weather was cool. We used to have so much fun walking to school. If we stopped off to hear the latest songs they sing, sometimes we'd just make it back before the bell.
And I remember getting thrown off the bus by, I think it must have been Alice. I don't know what I was doing, but anyway, she threw me and Dennis Williams off the bus. And from there on, I decided to walk home from school down the railroad tracks, and which was a wonderful memory, the train. And
I did have to walk to school on occasion when I missed the bus, and it was very scary because we had to walk down the trestle and through the tunnel, and yeah, it was very scary.
Did you
That's
have
going to
money
Redwood.
on the tracks?
No.
Oh, we did.
Huh? It was scary, dark, very dark, and I just remember long, really long, and it was scary.
I remember very vividly is I spent a lot of time fishing with my brother, and we used to fish off the railroad pier thing before they built Elephant Rock, and we just had a great time fishing. The third thing I remember very vividly is going under the boardwalk and getting money to go buy candy.
And I remember taking the school bus on Tiburon Boulevard, and where Del Mar is now was a dairy farm where there were cows. And it's a vivid memory of mine.
The one thing I do remember about Del Mar, yes, Mr. Schisler was a jackass, thank you, and he did wield the paddle pretty good.
Henry Newton and I, about 8th grade, Henry was quite a shipbuilder, and what we did, he wanted to sail a raft across from Tiburon to Angel Island. So what we got was some old oil drums, roped them up with some plywood on both ends, tied them together the best we could, and we had 2 oars, and we set sail off of Tiburon Boulevard all the way to Angel Island.
And I remember the goat lady used to bring her goats down to the boardwalk, and she'd have them on a little leash. And those goats would be, the kids would just come up, and she'd feed the goats, and the kids would pet the goats. And Papa Hugo, does anybody remember Papa Hugo? That's Rick Monagani, who was a couple years older than us. His dad owned the Monagani's market, and they had a granddad named Papa Hugo who had this old car that he put together by hand, and it moved at about 15 miles an hour. And you could always tell when it was going down the street because it make this little and about 20 cars would be behind it.
I remember going to church with Heidi Cook. I remember in the 7th grade, John Whitelaw and I being Sonny and Cher, which we did quite well. And then dancing our 8th grade dance, was always so sweet. And I remember we were all so excited, and it was Lori Wallace and I. We were all excited. We got our purses, and we went into the bathroom. I hung my purse up, and we were chatting, and went, wait a minute, what did I just hang my purse on? We're in the boys' bathroom. Oh, no.
And I think this is one of the most beautiful places in the world to grow up, and we all have these great memories that are, I was listening to everybody, and everybody, in the water, climbing the hills and the trestles and everything. This is just a great group of people, and I'm so glad you're all here, and I hope you'll all be here again. And I think everybody said what I was going to say. So
anything at school, a school dance or a game or something that
well, I got suspended. I came in late for typing class, and I had these shoes that were slippery, fell right on my butt and went